Well, everyone, you already know what time it is. We're going to be taking a look at the Samsung Galaxy S20 and comparing it to the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus. Now, this really all comes down to size, whether size matters or doesn't. And I know that's kind of like a weird thing. People don't like talking about it. But in the phone market, this is probably one of the most important questions that we need to ask ourselves in this day and age. Now, the Samsung Galaxy S20 is the phone that I've had for the last couple of days. I don't even think it's been a week yet. And the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus I just picked up yesterday. And I can tell you honestly, the size is the biggest difference between these. But there's also a key couple other things as well that might make you sway to one phone over the other, even if the size doesn't even matter for you. So we're going to be taking a look at both those things today and both of these phones and seeing which one you should pick up. Now, price wise, the Samsung Galaxy S20, the smaller one, is the cheaper one between these. The S20 is going for about $1,000 on Amazon, but if you give it a little bit of time, they'll probably go cheaper. But right now, that's the price point you're paying for it. The Galaxy S20 Plus is selling for about $1,100 something dollars, which isn't a crazy huge price difference between these, but it is something to kind of consider. That is a little bit of a price jump that you're going to have to pay for a Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus over the Galaxy S20. Now, unfortunately, there is no E series device. There's no Galaxy S20e like the S10e had, and that's really dumb. I don't know why they did that. That was probably one of the dumbest things ever, but there's really nothing we can do at this point. But what I can tell you is, in terms of both phones, they're very similar in the way they are, and even looking at the front, the Samsung Galaxy S20 has that 6.2-inch dynamic AMOLED display. It's a 1440p panel, and it's a very good panel. There's really nothing wrong with it. It has that hole punch display in the center of the display, a little bit of bezel at the top and bottom, but other than that, it's a very, very good, sharp-looking panel overall. Where the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus is a 6.7-inch dynamic AMOLED display, and that one is also 1440p, but there's less pixels per inch. On the S20, there's 563 pixels per inch. On the S20 Plus, there's 525 pixels per inch. Overall, they're almost identically the same panel. I don't think you're going to really be able to tell the difference between them. But in terms of the size difference, it is pretty noticeable for sure. I mean, if you're holding the S20 in one hand and the S20 Plus in the other one, you're definitely going to notice quite a bit of difference. And it's nothing that's too crazy. I don't even think it's as big of a jump going from an iPhone 11 Pro to an 11 Pro Max. I think that's actually a bigger jump. Between these, there's a half-inch difference in the size, in the screen size at least. And if you're holding them side by side, you're definitely going to see that the S20 Plus is the bigger phone, but it's still a pretty small phone for having, a 6.7-inch display. That's a pretty big display for having on such a small size body. So for sure, in terms of that, I'll give the edge to the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus. I like the bigger phones, but that's totally me. If it's you, you might be different. One cool thing to note though that both phones have is that 120Hz refresh rate on both panels. So on the Galaxy S20 and the S20 Plus, you can turn on that 120Hz and it'll enable so much smoothness on that display. And I would really recommend, if you've never seen it before, go to Best Buy, go to your AT&T, T-Mobile store, whatever, and test out the Galaxy S20's refresh rate on that 120Hz. It is such a cool little feature, and it definitely will change your mind on both phones, and hopefully every single phone in the future will enable it. Now, unfortunately, it does suck up a little bit of battery, but it's not the end of the world. It's not really that big of a deal. So in terms of the panels, both panels are very, very good still, and they're both almost identical. Both have USB Type-C ports on the bottom. On the back, glass backs on both, but a little bit of difference in terms of the camera setups. The S20 has 3 camera sensors. The Galaxy S20 Plus kind of has 4. It's more so 3, but it has an additional depth sensor, which is really cool. What that does is, I don't even know what it does, but it gives you some additional benefits with that camera, so that's really cool. But in terms of that, are you really going to even use all 3 cameras? Are you even going to really care? That's a question you're going to have to ask yourself. But both phones have IP certification as well. IP68 dust and water resistance. You can go up to 1.5 meters of water for 30 minutes. And both have inbuilt fingerprint sensors in the display and micro SD card slots as well, which is really cool. So one doesn't really blow the other one out of the water. Really, the main thing is the S20 Plus has that additional depth sensor as well as a bigger sized body. But other than that, they're really almost identical in every single way. So in terms of the bodies, that's pretty much it. In terms of the software, they're both going to be ending about the same time as well. One isn't going to be necessarily outlasting the other, and which kind of sucks too, because you're spending more money on the S20 Plus, but you're not getting many additional features on it. If you look at the Galaxy S8 and S8 Plus, those phones, if you look at the S8 Plus, for between those ones, that didn't really get too many crazy features above the S8, the standard one. So And I guess the same thing is here too, but both phones are still really great. In terms of software, they're both going to be lasting for the same time. Like I said, they're going to be getting One UI 3, One UI 4, and that's really it. Right now it's on One UI 2, and it's going to be lasting for a couple more years, but there is a possibility that Samsung will be changing their layout of their software. They could potentially, start increasing their life cycle. It's very rare that we've seen that from Samsung. It's really like 50-50, but they really need to do it if they really want to stand out in this market. There's a lot of other phones out there, and especially with competitors like OnePlus, with Google Pixel. This year, I feel like those competitors are going to start stepping up a notch. No pun intended. And I feel like, especially Google, the last year was a flop. The year before that was kind of a flop with the Pixel 3 XL. I think this year they're definitely going to start changing things up a little bit. So in terms of the software, right now they're ending at their usual 2 years later, but there could be a change. We really don't know yet. So in terms of the software, that pretty much covers it. Now, hitting on the performance, both phones have the same exact Qualcomm Snapdragon 865s in them. Both have octa-core CPUs. Both have Adreno 650 GPUs. Now, there is a little bit of difference in terms of the storage models between them. So the Samsung Galaxy S20 has one 128GB model with 12GB of RAM. With the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus, all those models have 12GB of RAM, but there's a little bit of difference in terms of the storage models. There's the 128, 256, and 512GB models, and like I said, they all have 12GB of RAM, and I find that really weird that Samsung put more storage models for the Plus variants over the smaller variants, so that's a really big advantage for the S20 Plus. If you're looking for a phone, that is a pretty big advantage right there. You have additional storage variants on top of the microSD card slot. Now, one thing I want to say is that with the S10 Plus, we had a 1TB option, but Samsung took that away for no reason. I don't know why they did that. With the S20 Plus, we don't have that capability, but with the S10 Plus, we did, so that's really weird. I don't know why they did that. But in terms of the performance, I did a whole speed test and everything, but it was a waste of time because they both almost did almost identically the same thing. Really, the biggest thing I saw was that sometimes the S20 was faster, and sometimes the S20 Plus was faster. So in terms of the performance, they're really identical. They're very, very close. Even the times they were faster was only by 1 millisecond, and that could very well be due to the network. Maybe the network was being weird that time. It's such a small difference, it's not even worth mentioning. So what I can tell you about both phones is that the S20, is a very good performing phone. It's really, really fine. I don't really think anybody's going to be complaining about it if they have the S20, and the same thing goes for the S20 Plus. Both phones are very good performing phones. They're top tier. I've compared pretty much both phones, since they're almost the exact same thing, to the iPhone 11s, to the S10s, to all these other phones, and I was saying that there's quite a bit of difference in terms of the performance. You're getting a much better performing phone on the S20 and the S20 Plus over all these other competitors. So what I'll tell you right now is, either phone is going to be perfectly fine. You're not going to notice that big of a difference between them in terms of performance, but that doesn't mean to say that both phones are bad performing phones or anything like that. They're both very, very good performing phones, and I give them both thumbs up for sure. So in terms of performance, that pretty much covers it. Now, hitting on the cameras, like I said, both phones have, triple camera setups, but the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus has an additional 0.3 megapixel depth sensor. So both phones have 12 megapixel wide angle lens, 64 megapixel telephoto lens, and then the 12 megapixel ultra wide sensors, and like I said, the additional depth sensor on the S20 Plus. Now, both phones' cameras are honestly probably one of the most capable cameras in the market right now. We can do 4K 60 frames, which is really nice, and all those cool little things, but the additional feature of being able to shoot 8K videos is amazing. I'm personally never probably going to use it if I'm being honest, but it's just the fact that we have that capability on this phone is just crazy. It's just so out there. You have to keep in mind that, there's still a lot of phones that can't even do 4K 60 on that back camera, just like the Pixel 4 and 4 XL. They can't even do 4K 60 frames, and now we have 8K on the S20 and S20 Plus, which is super insane. And on the front, 10 megapixel sensors on both, and we can do 4K 60 frames on that sensor as well. So both phones have very good camera sensors. One doesn't necessarily blow the other one out of the water, but just know that the S20 Plus does have that additional depth sensor at the end of the day. So cameras on both these phones are amazing still. Now, ending it off with the battery life, again, usually these would be one of the crazier differences between them, but honestly, there's like a 500 milliamp hour difference. The Samsung Galaxy S20 has a 4000 milliamp hour battery, the Samsung Galaxy S20 Plus has a 4500 milliamp hour battery, and that is a very good battery life on these phones, and those are very respectable battery sizes. One phone doesn't necessarily blow the other one out of the water, but like I said, the S20 Plus will have the better battery life just because it is a little bit bigger. Both phones have wireless charging, but they also have reverse wireless charging as well, which is a really cool little feature. You can charge technically both phones at the same time, and I'm curious to see if you reverse wirelessly charge both phones at the same time, what happens. I'm actually going to drop that video on my second channel, but what I'll tell you is right now, both phones have very good battery life, but the S20 Plus just lasts a little bit longer in my opinion than the Galaxy S20, but it's really not even by much. They're both very respectable, and I have high regards for both phones in terms of the battery and the battery life. So to kind of sum up the video and to answer the comparison, should you pick up a Galaxy S20 or the Galaxy S20 Plus? Honestly, if you have all the money in the world, the S20 Plus does give you the additional features at the end of the day. It gives you that additional depth sensor, a bigger phone and bigger display, more storage options, as well as a bigger battery. Those are some things that people might actually care about. But if you're okay with saving $100, there's really not that big of a difference. If the S20 Plus was a 20 out of 20, the S20 is probably like a 19 out of 20. Like, it's a very small difference between them, if I'm being honest. So if you want to pick up either of these phones, like I said, I'll find the cheapest ones on Amazon. I'll link them down in the description below so you can get them from there and help support the channel at the same time. But that is pretty much it. If you guys have any other questions or anything, leave it down in the comment section as well. Hit that like button, that would mean so much, but definitely hit that subscribe button. Every single subscriber that we get really does count, so it means so much if you guys could hit that. Also, check out the other links down in the description as well. My Twitter, my Instagram, my second channel, all those links are linked down below. I'd really appreciate if you guys could check it out. More importantly than everything else, I love every single one of you guys. Hopefully I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace out till then.